Today, we're looking at Krishna's Orchid Lily. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Krishna's Orchid Lily is a purple or violet ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a D-like alpha with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is this is a fairly true purple, as in ink. It starts pushing its way up. We get the purple that gathers, but then it's either an off of that purple or a slightly blue. So while I was saying a true purple, it might have some blue in there. Then I did the second chromatography. I let it dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it changed my opinions about it being quite possibly a true purple, because what appeared to maybe be some blue across at the top really held in place. And we see this blue line across the bottom, and only the purple pushes up. And the water does push past it, but that blue line makes me feel that it might try to stay around a little bit. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard this ink might be to clean from your pen. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles it fairly well. It does spread a slight bit, goes to just about a fine from that extra fine, but everything's completely readable, making me feel comfortable using it in a note-taking situation. Water's reactivating and lifting most all of this ink off the page. You're starting to see the white of the paper come through with only 30 seconds. So I really do think it would only ever take water to get this off your page, or out of your pen. Strangely, pen flush did less than water. There's a lot more left behind from the pen flush, which is a very unusual thing, and I can't say why that would happen. But I'm going to revert back to the idea that I believe that water's all that's needed. Bleach, as would be expected, is removing it from the page. It did leave that yellow staining behind that sometimes happens from the bleach, but I don't believe it's going to take a 1/3 bleach solution to get this out of your pen. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Krishna's Orchid Lily has a viscosity of 2.69, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Krishna's Orchid Lily has an average dry time of 14 seconds, making it normal. The faster side of normal, but still normal. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in bottle form when I ordered a whole bunch of their inks, and a lot of them I have not regretted. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine that has a super loose nib and feed now. Let's take a look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has very nice shading that's going on. It gets some very, very light areas and dark areas, some super dark areas. It's nice. It's subtle in a lot of spaces. The extra fine has the same tones that we see with the 1.1, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers some very nice shading, like the starts very dark and then gets light, and quick starts light and gets dark, and jump starts light and gets dark, and it's beautiful. 9 seconds to dry. The medium is a darker tone, and with that darker tone, it has no feather spread, halo sheen, and the shade is beautiful. Looking at quick, you see that it goes from dark to light to super dark, and brown starts with super dark and gets light. And when it's super dark, it's not so dark, it becomes like a black. It stays. It keeps that purple color
the whole time. Now I'm going to go ahead and point out that I put Orchid Lily at the top, and the ink name is Orchard Lily. And I don't know why I did that, and I think I screwed it up in a few different spots. 16 seconds to dry on the medium. The scrubby for both show us some color variation. They do not show us as much color variation as we see up here. And the smear test you could likely recover if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding. We do get ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread. It has halo all over it. No sheen and no shade. The extra fine has the same tone that we got with the 1.1. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading here. 14 seconds to dry. Beautiful color. The medium, a darker tone with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 19 seconds to dry. Now the extra fine scrubby is showing me halo, but I didn't get it. The medium scrubby is showing me halo, and I really didn't get it. So it just looks like when it gets to some of those really darker or heavier ink areas, you can get some haloing. I was just not experiencing it. It didn't show color variation. We did not see color variation. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing with this. Rhodia. Rhodia gives no bleeding, no ghosting. Those spots, that's not bleed through. That's me from the page underneath. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading, and some very nice shading, where it transitions from a very light into a medium to a very dark, back to medium, back to dark. Beautiful stuff. The extra fine has the exact same tones that we see with the 1.1. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some shading, as in it's that very mid-tone the whole way through, and when it shades to the darker tone, like the H in the K in quick, the L and the Y in lazy. The is entirely a darker word. It's beautiful. 10 seconds to dry. Now medium became a much darker tone when it went down thicker. It had no feather spread, halo sheen, and we do not get any of the shading here. It took 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows us a lot of color variation, and we did get it, and the medium shows us none, and we got none. The smear test, you could probably recover it if you smeared while you were writing. So I like to see what happens to the color of an ink with a different background. So yellow Rhodia. And what's going on with the tones here? And not a whole lot. This is a dense ink. I need to zoom out. Out. There we go. This is a dense ink, so we're really not seeing any color change for having the yellow background. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. The shade is beautiful here. It's beautiful. Nice mid to light tones all the way through, back and forth, out of the mid and light, none of the dark tones. The extra fine has the exact same tone that we see with the 1.1, with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do not get any shading on the yellow paper. Any of the shading that we had with the white is gone with the yellow. 10 seconds to dry. Now the medium became a very dark tone with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading. The yellow paper ate up the shading here. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both showed us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, you could probably recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Now the next writing sample comes on hazel paper. This is from the Noonday Brocade pocket notebook. These are fantastic. Toothy paper, very worth getting, very worth using. It has no bleeding, no ghosting. It handles fountain pens so well. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The exact same tone with the extra fine. No feather spread, no halo sheen, no shade. 6 seconds to dry. Now the medium became a much darker tone. No feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both showed us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Black and red notebooks, which have performed very well. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. It's actually dull on this one. It's a slightly darker tone, and the color gets nicer on the extra fine. It's that slightly darker and right into that sweet spot, right there. Extra fine, no feather spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading on this paper, unfortunately. 6 seconds to dry. The medium becomes a darker tone again, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading here. 7 seconds to dry. Very good for with students here. Nice. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, I believe you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. That is all that I have for the writing scene.
Instead of finding inks that look like Krishna's orchid lily, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I've chosen Diamine's Raw Sienna because it's a very nice brown to go with this purple. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Krishna's orchid lily? I think this is a beautiful tone of purple that offers plenty of shading with a lot of different nibs. And the tone itself I find very pleasant and calming to look at. Thanks for watching.